Tomajko. Obs on Aggro versus Obs on Reanimator. It's a very Siege Rhino-filled top 8 here.
Now, something to keep in mind here, Boswell does have 4 copies in the main deck of Anafenza the Foremost. And that text box, which is in a lot of matchups just kind of a throwaway text box, matters a lot in the Obs on Reanimator matchup. If you can keep Oliver's stuff from going into the graveyard, that's obviously a huge boon for Boswell, who can then become way less concerned about Whip of Erebos.
Both players will be getting things off with the Windswept Teeth. Boswell will sacrifice his first. He's down to 19 as our quarterfinals here from Providence is underway. Boswell on 5 cards, Tomajko on 6. Tomajko, it states, actually played Sultai Reanimator and decided to make the switch this weekend to Obs on Reanimator, get some testing in for his regional PTQ next weekend. It's obviously working out just fine, but we'll see if he can stop the Boz and his Fleece main Lion.
Looks like Boswell has mulliganed into a fine opening hand here. Rakshasa Death Dealer, which he can cast next turn, along with Hero's Downfall and Ultimate Price.
It's actually a pretty good mulligan 5.
Solid 5-card hand.
Tomajko going to sacrifice his Windswept Teeth. He's going down to 19. He's got a Forest. Perhaps we'll see a little bit of acceleration here from him.
Even just his shuffling and facial expressions and everything is definitely belies his age.
To Satyr Wayfinder, he'll turn over 4 cards. Forest is 1, Satyr Wayfinder is 2, Whip of Erebos is 3, Courser of Crufix is number 4. The spells will go to the graveyard, the Forest will go to Oliver's hand, and we're going to head back Boswell's way. He'll untap and draw. And it's time to attack here for 3. Tomajko's going to block very quickly with the Satyr Wayfinder. Death Dealer will be the play post-combat here for Boswell. And it'll be a passing the turn back to Tomajko. Tomajko will draw a copy of Sylvan Caryatid.
You can see Whip of Erebos already in hand. One of the more important cards for Oliver in the matchup, his eventual way of taking the game over.
Plays a Courser, reveals the Sylvan Caryatid. He'll pass the turn back over to Boswell. Boswell will draw. Picked up a copy of Sandsep Citadel.
Sandsep Citadel, a nice draw, as it allows Boswell to have double black and a 3rd mana next turn for Hero's Downfall. Also allows him to cast Warden and Pump It next turn if Oliver plays nothing to the board. Ultimate
Price takes care of the Courser. Boswell is able to attack here for 5 points of damage. Tomajko down to 14. Boswell down to 16, as he does have a little bit of a painful mana base here. Tomajko going to sacrifice his Windswept Teeth. He'll go down to 13. I imagine we'll see a Plains enter the battlefield in just a moment here. And it does. Some old school lands for the youngster.
Yep, I believe that's a little bit of some portal action there. Forests or Mirage. Those cards, I believe, older than he is at this point.
Caryatid's 1 and 2 there for Tomajko before passing the turn back over to Boswell.
Yeah, actually, it's not close.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm thinking about it now and actually doing the math. It's not even
they're
particularly close.
Definitely older than him.
Yeah.
The difficult thing here for Boswell is that Tomajko actually has a copy of Hornet Queen in hand. Not sure if he has the necessary mana to cast it next turn, but we will find out.
Fleece Main Lion and Rakshasa Death Dealer can, in theory, slog through a Hornet Queen, but with Boswell's life total already pretty low and Oliver with Whip of Erebos in hand as well, it's likely to be too much to overcome.
Here are the attacks. Looks like Boswell's going to do a little bit of pumping. He'll pump the Death Dealer once. He'll force through 7 points of damage. Tomajko down to 6. Boswell's follow-up, he'll take 1. It is a Warden of the First Tree. Pass that turn back. We'll see if Tomajko has a land number 5, which would be the 7th mana source here for Hornet Queen. This is big here. Looks like the answer is no. It'll be a Courser. Take a look at that top card, Temple of Silence. That'll enter the battlefield. Trigger the Courser. Little scry action here. Commune with the Gods. It's the top card. We'll see if he wants to keep it or not.
Commune nice with Whip in hand, but might be a little too slow, given that Oliver's priority right now has to be to stabilize the board.
Oliver did have a Temple of Malady in hand, so he really wanted that land enter the battlefield on tap to play Hornet Queen, which would have been fantastic at stabilizing.
Yes.
It's very, very hard for Obs on Aggro to beat a Hornet Queen.
And part of the problem now is Oliver can't really commit the Caryatids in combat, because if they die, then he's behind on the mana necessary to cast the Hornet Queen.
Commune's going to go to the bottom. Siege Rhino's going to sit on top.
Yeah, and that's why I like passing over the Commune there, because Oliver needs something with some immediacy because he's under some pretty serious duress, and he may be in a position soon to have to commit the Caryatids to blocking. And once that happens, Hornet Queen's off the table.
Boswell draws his card for the turn. He's had a hero's downfall for some time. See the creatures on the battlefield: Rakshasa Death Dealer, Fleece Mane Lion, and of course Warden of the First Tree. Now Boswell's got to figure out, all right, what does my opponent have in hand? Because 3 mana can represent a lot of things from an Abzan deck.
The most straightforward play that Andrew has access to is just to remove the Corsair Crewfix via his removal spell and attack. But that play is very dangerous if Oliver has a removal spell of his own. Alternatively, he can just go into combat and attack, and Oliver doesn't really have great blocks with the Corsair Crewfix because Andrew can make any of his creatures able to survive a Corsair block, and the Caryatids are much in the same place where they can't favorably block anything because the Caryatids all die in combat.
Well, looks like Boswell's just going to make the straightforward attack here. Death Dealer will pump and take care of Corsair. 4 damage will be dealt. Tomajko's going to go down to 3. The follow-up is a Death Dealer, and Boswell will pass the turn back. Siege Rhino on the draw here for Tomajko. We'll see. We will not see the top card of his deck as Corsair is no longer in play. Been informed very quickly that Dustin Taylor on our backup match is up a game here over Noah Walker very quickly. Sultai Reanimator up a game over Jeskai Aggro. Temple of Malady Scry is resolved, but more importantly, here's Hornet Queen and 4 insects joining it.
And now that's why the Siege Rhino that Oliver has in hand is so important, because the Siege Rhino can pull him out of range of Boswell top decking a Siege Rhino, and then this Hornet Queen can go to work stabilizing the board.
Boswell will draw. It's not a Siege Rhino to end the game right now. That's just a Sansep Citadel.
Now, Boswell still gets to keep attacking here with the Death Dealers, because he's able to regenerate them. He can actually regenerate both of them, as he has double green and double black, and at least makes some inroads into the Hornets. Next turn, with 5 mana available, he can either do that again or go monsters to the Fleece main line and start hitting there. So this Hornet Queen is going to buy Oliver a lot of time, and alongside the Whip of Erebos and Siege Rhino may be enough to stabilize, but at least for the time being, Boswell can make some inroads onto the board.
Here are your blocks, we believe. Oliver considering how he wants to block. He may have some interest in actually blocking with Hornet Queen itself.
Yeah, get that in the graveyard so Whip of Erebos can get it back. Makes a lot of sense.
Regeneration there for Boswell on both Death Dealers.
Boswell definitely does not like the fact that Oliver is blocking there with the Hornet Queen.
I wouldn't either. Tomajko will draw. Siege Rhino in hand. Whip of Erebos 2. Doomwake Giant wants to draw for the turn.
He's also got enough mana right now to play and activate Whip in the same turn.
Magic player Oliver Chang to the stage, please. Oliver Chang to the stage, please.
Here's the Siege Rhino. There's your trigger. Tomajko up to 6. Boswell a little bit lower. Looks like the follow-up's going to be Whip of Erebos now. Makes for a really, really nice turn. Tomajko will pass the turn back. I don't know if there's any way of clawing out of this if you're Boswell. Seems pretty tough.
Yeah, Oliver here playing pretty conservatively. Not offering up any attacks here, but with Andrew drawing Siege Rhino, that's actually kind of nice.
Yeah. That Siege Rhino there for Boswell is 1 turn too late. It may be. It's going to be a game winner last turn.
Yeah, last turn with Oliver at 3, that's a game winner. Now, may not be enough.
Because even running a Siege Rhino at this point may not get the job done, given the Whip of Erebos.
Yep. And also, Andrew can't really attack, or it's hard to attack at this spot, because Oliver is definitely going to block with the Hornets, and that's going to tie up Boswell's mana, whether it's going monsters with Fleece mainline or regenerating his Rakshasa Death Dealers. And at that point, he doesn't have the mana left over to deploy the Siege Rhino.
Tomajko waiting very patiently for Boswell to make his move. Looks like the move that Boz is going to make is Siege Rhino. Boz is going to go up to 11. Tomajko back down to 3.
Another thing to keep in mind here, Boswell's list, no copies of Bioblight.
Yep.
And the deck lists are public, so Oliver is aware of this, and he can lean very heavily on Hornet Queen, knowing that Andrew has no real way to punish him for taking that line. In the Swiss rounds, without the deck list being public, maybe this game plays out a little differently, because Oliver respects the ability of Boswell to be able to Bioblade all the Hornet tokens away, but with that off the table, Oliver's free to just lean on that as much as he wants to.
I think that's exactly what he will do. Sansep Citadel was the draw. Doomway Giant was their last turn. Doomway Giant not having a huge effect on this board. You can snag that Warden right now if you'd like.
Doesn't matter too much. I think the highest priority right now for Oliver is to make sure you attack with at least one thing this turn. Trigger that Whip of Erebos, get that life link, and make sure you're out of Siege Rhino range. He held back on an attack last turn. Now with Boswell having played Siege Rhino, I think Oliver needs to attack with something. If he's getting back the Hornet Queen, then attacking with the Hornet Queen itself is at least a freebie, but he needs to make sure he pulls himself out of Siege Rhino range.
Here is Hornet Queen. So 4 more insects will join. Now we'll see exactly what Tomajko wants to attack with here. It's going to be at least the Hornet Queen. We know that. Just how many insects does he want to come in with? He's a little unsure.
He would like to put himself in a position where he can attack for lethal next turn. That would be nice if he can get to that.
Yeah.
And he still has 7 blockers available. Now 8 blockers available against 5 creatures. So this seems pretty safe.
Yep. 7-7 now. Hornet Queen exiled. Pass the turn back over to Boswell. Temple Silence, the draw to go along with the Hero's Downfall. I do not think that has a winning combination of cards here. Or Boswell will take a look at the graveyard to see if there's anything he can get done.
Well, I just don't think he can make a profitable attack right now. I'm sure Boswell will play on, but
as he should.
I don't see him getting out of this.
First things first is a Temple. The top card will go to the bottom from the scry. We'll see if Boswell can make the most out of that Hero's Downfall in hand. And Boswell just going to pass the turn back. Perhaps hoping that the youngster will make a mistake. Mr. Michael will draw. Just another land for Oliver. It was a Windswept Teeth. Doomwake Giant still in hand. Whip of Erebos still an option. Here is 5 mana. There is Doomwake Giant. The trigger, of course, will give -1/-1 to some things. Warden to the first tree, however, looks like it's going to hang out. We'll see a pump.
And that means that Andrew can now no longer cast the Hero's Downfall. Oh, excuse me, he still has 3 mana available, but it will kill him if Oliver attacks with all of the bees.
Correct. Another trigger there from Constellation, giving everything else -1/-1. So that means those Death Dealers are now on the table to die.
Yeah, now even the Siege Rhino is going to be too much to overcome. Because these Death Dealers are either going to die or he's going to have to dump mana into them, and then he can't even represent a removal spell.
Can't forget that the Courser gets to come into the red zone now, too.
Yeah.
Boswell's team a lot smaller.
Have been posted online and are working their way.
Tomajko waiting patiently to trigger Constellation. There go the Death Dealers.
Please take a quick look and find your way to your seat.
Windswept Teeth will come in. The last card from Tomajko's hand. That'll trigger the courser, of course. Pardon the pun, get some life. Here are the attacks. Courser attack is free, as mentioned. And that is going to do it. Oliver Tomajko is going to win game number 1 here over Andrew Boswell. Obzon Reanimator up a game here over Obzon Aggro in our quarterfinals.
Yeah, Boswell there had a couple kind of swing turns there. He might have been able to squeeze out the last couple points of damage, but once Oliver was able to deploy Whip of Erebos, the whole thing's locked up.
Let's talk sideboards here, my friends, and we will start with the Boz and what he has for his Obzon Aggro deck. What do you got in front of you?
A Thoughtseize, 2 copies of Duress, 2 copies of Hunt the Hunter, 3 copies of Valorous Stance, 3 copies of Drowned Sorrow, a Soren Solemn Visitor, 2 copies of Nissa Worldwaker, and then a Johnny Mentor of Heroes. These kind of matchups we've seen Boswell go to Valorous Stance a lot, go to Hunt the Hunter a lot, and to go to his Planeswalkers. I expect much the same thing here. I think the 4th Thoughtseize will come in as well.
For Tomajko, 2 Arbor Colossus, 4 Fleecemane Lion, a Mastery of the Unseen, 2 Bioblights, and 2 Ultimate Price, along with an Outer End, a Pharika God of Affliction, a Glare of Heresy, and a Thoughtseize.
I like the Glare of Heresy a lot in this matchup. I like the 2 copies of Bioblight, and I like the 4 copies of Fleecemane Lion. Oliver lowering his curve a little bit and getting to block. Pretty valuable for him, because you saw once you get to the middle and later turns of the game, Oliver's got a pretty big edge. And then the removal spells are naturally going to be helpful against Boswell.
We talk about Oliver and how young he is. Just 14 years of age. Normally when we talk about young players, we talk about somewhere within the age of, 18 to 21, like Shahar Shenhar, like Jacob Wilson as well, our Season 1 Invitational champion. And winning that Invitational brought this token.
Yeah, congratulations to Jacob, who won the Season 1 Invitational, defeating Reduke in the finals and qualifying for the Players' Championship. And now your Monastery Mentor tokens, well, here you go. And these tokens are actually available for you to acquire as well.
Yeah, it won't be tough. Starting next weekend in Cleveland, you'll be able to get them at the Open Series. Any orders that you place on Star City Games, $5 or more, be it on the website, be it at the dealer booth, all that stuff. So a myriad of ways to acquire this token, of course, used mostly, we believe, for Monastery Mentor, though maybe something else comes out.
Also when you attend a Premier IQ as well. So a variety of ways to get these tokens, but they're only available for a limited time, as we always create more of these tokens when people win Invitational. So if you want to get your Jacob Wilson Monk token, make sure to enter one of our large events or place an order with StarCityGames.com.
Congratulations again to Jacob Wilson on his Season 1 Invitational win. A really dominant performance.
Yes. Good on him. Not actually a great record during the standard portion, but breezed through the elimination rounds for the most part.
Made Legacy look easy.
Oh, yeah.
He always does that.
Oh, yeah.
Teamer Delver, he is really good at playing that deck. Dustin Taylor is apparently pretty good at playing Sultai Reanimator as well. He just breezed right by Noah Walker. Noah Walker had a pretty nice tournament near the top of the standings for most of the weekend, but his tournament is done. Jeskai Aggro out, Sultai Reanimator moving forward to actually play the winner of this match.
That was a fast one, too.
Yes, it was. Taylor actually been away from the game for a little bit. Again, he did win a Standard Open back in 2012 here in Providence with green-red aggro during the blue-white Delver era, which is actually a pretty hard thing to do considering how good blue-white Delver was.
I was more of a walking corpse myself during that era.
You sure were. You sure were. That corpse was made for walking. That's just what it's going to do. Classic 2-2 textless. Well, it actually has some text.
Has some flavor text.
Has some flavor text. Peter Wynn wins his match 2-1 over Ben Feinger. So for you Obzon haters out there, your hero, Mono Red, getting it done. Moving on to the semis. Going to play against the winner, Robert Vaughn and Kyle Shane. Those guys are grinding away in an Obzon mirror down there.
I mean, you really haven't lived until your opponent in a constructed tournament has picked up your walking corpse to read it, assuming that it has a power.
Then I will never live because I will never sleeve that up in constructed. It's not a thing that will happen.
A lot of gut shots in that format, man. A lot of gut shots.
It's really true. You weren't a fan of Blood Artist, if I remember.
No.
You did not like that.
Oh, just dies.
Yep.
Also, you know, when your draw maybe isn't great or your opponent has removal spells, it's also really bad.
True. But the corpse?
When you're at home by yourself, just goldfishing the deck, then Blood Artist looks really good. Gets a lot worse when there's an opponent on the other side of the table.
Well, that's typically my testing, is the
Right.
goldfish.
Yeah, it's really good assuming you don't have an opponent. But unfortunately in tournaments, you have an opponent.
That's
so.
too bad. That's a real hiccup there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oliver Tomajko off to a nice start here in the quarterfinals. Up a game here over the person who has loomed large over this tournament, and Andrew Boswell has been in first place basically the whole way.
Yeah. was undefeated at the end of day 1. Picked up a loss early on in day 2.
And we saw that level of dominance actually in Syracuse 2 weeks ago from Chris Van Meter,
Yes.
who loomed large over that tournament for the entirety of it and actually won the whole thing.
Though Chris, through the top 8, did not have a matchup as challenging as the one that Andrew has right now.
And this is true, and oddly enough, when we saw Boswell last, I think at Grand Prix Miami, he got knocked out by Chad Castell there. He had a difficult matchup there, too.
Something that's interesting also about Boswell's list here is that there isn't actually a way in the 75 to remove Whip of Erebos once it's in play. There's some sideways stuff going on. There's discard spells. He has 3 copies of Thoughtseize in his main deck. He can sideboard into a 4th copy of that and 2 copies of Duress. He also has 4 copies of NFNs of the Foremost, which if he's able to get it preemptively before Oliver's able to generate much graveyard value, that could be an answer as well. But there's no reclamation stage. There's no erase. Once it's in play, it's just there.
Yep.
So Boswell's leaning on having an efficient curve, of having, some discard spells, and Anafenza. That's his way of dealing with Whip of Erebos. That game, none of those resources came to bear, and Whip of Erebos ran away with the game.
And Hornet Queen certainly demonstrated its power.
Yes.
It is so hard for Abzan Aggro to beat. And, taking a look at Boswell's versions of Abzan Aggro, never been a big Bioblight guy.
No. Part of that's a concession to mana as well, but, without Whip of Erebos that game, Boswell with his Fleecemane Lion and his 2 copies of Rakshasa Death Dealer might have been able to battle through Hornet Queen.
Yes.
You saw initially Oliver just kind of chump blocking, and there is no long-term solution. Oliver just overpowered Boswell to such an extent that it didn't matter that Boswell had some durable creatures.
Whip of Erebos is mighty powerful.
You have to be killing someone very, very fast or making the game about something else to be able to beat that card. But if you're playing with, 3 and 4 mana creatures, which at the end of the day Boswell's doing, and some removal spells, you've just got to shorten the game because you can't play long against this sort of deck.
No, we can't forget that Boswell did take a mulligan to 5 that game.
Yep.
Put up a really good fight.
Solid 5-card hand. Oliver mulligan as well.
Yeah. Really, really good 5-card hand for Boswell there. Able to interact in many different ways. And we're going to see what Boswell can put together here for game number 2. Quick update for you guys on our Abzan Control Mirror match. Kyle Shane and Robert Vaughn, they're going to game number 3. Winner of that match will be playing against Peter Wynn in his mono red deck. So we're making a quick run through our quarterfinals here.
Yeah, been speedy so far, especially given the number of Abzan decks and Reanimator strategies. It's been a fast quarterfinals.
It's not quite Syracuse.
No, that one was over. We were done before 5, I think.
I think so. One of the fastest tournaments I've ever covered.
I had time to go to the bank.
Yeah.
So it was over real fast.
We are underway. It is the Sansep Citadel. It's Michael with the Llanowar Waste. Game 2 of our quarterfinals between these two.
Boswell with a pretty land-heavy hand. Siege Rhino Valor stands. Rakshasa Death Dealer just picked up a ward in the first tree and lands.
It's a good draw to have, the Warden. Next turn he can play that and activate it.
Yep.
No play here on turn number 2 for Oliver. Oh, could be repping a removal spell. I suppose if he had a removal spell, he'd probably just want to use that to kill the Death Dealer. So.
It's good not to get too fancy against that card, for the most part. There's moments where you try to trap someone, but by and large, I think you're better served just killing it.
It's Plains, it's a Warden, it's a passing of the turn. And you see a little bit of the issue with the mana base for this deck, because by playing the Warden, Boswell can't pump or regenerate the Death Dealer.
Though, I don't think he's too worried about that in this spot, because if Oliver says, I'll untap and I'll Hero's Downfall your Death Dealer, well, that gives Andrew an opportunity to make his Warden a 3/3, untap and hit, play Siege Rhino. It's not so bad. You are correct that the mana is a little... These spots come up a fair bit.
They do.
You don't have access to all of your options at all times. But if Oliver's turn 3 play is Hero's Downfall on your Death Dealer, that's not the end of the world for Boswell. He's got resources to play with.
Oliver down to 17 after fetching with his Windswept Teeth, getting a Plains. See how he wants to move forward on his third turn of the game. Has options as far as lands are concerned. Has a Courser of Crew Fix too.
Courser is a pretty dangerous play. If Boswell has a removal spell to follow up with, you're falling quite a bit behind.
You get a Warden of the first reactivation here on Tomajko's end step. See if Tomajko will have a response.
He's clutching a downfall.
Yep.
It's a painful downfall, too.
It really is.
It's 2 damage off Land of War Waste, and Boswell gets to untap and attack with something.
I think the tough thing here for Oliver is he's not entirely sure which creature you want to kill. And this is, again, one of the things I actually really like about Abzan aggro is just, am I supposed to kill the Warden of the first tree, which can go big, or am I supposed to kill the Death Dealer when I have the chance?
Yep. I think the logic here for taking care of the Warden is the scenario Oliver is worried most about is that Andrew has a powerful top end. And at that point, he's only taking 2 points of damage a turn from the Death Dealer instead of 4. If Andrew's hand is bad, Death Dealer is more powerful. But Oliver's not worried about winning the game when Andrew's hand is bad. He's trying to beat the good draws. And at that point, you'd rather just take care of the 3/3 than the 2/2.
This is certainly a good draw. Death Dealer into Warden into Siege Rhino.
So Oliver immediately paid off for that hero's downfall because he's trying to beat Boswell's good hands, and Boswell's good hands are tapping out every single turn, developing his board or being cast as removal spells or whatever the case may be.
Which you can redeem at the stage for
Boswell waiting patiently to see what Tomajko will bring to the table.
So that decision there from Oliver last turn saved him at least 1 point of damage.
We'll be closing redemption in the next few hours.
There's Murderous Cut to take care of the Rhino. Tomajko has to go down to 9 to cast it. Boswell going to untap and take a draw here. He'll play a Sandstep Citadel. Here's an attack. There's a pump.
And Andrew willing to put the shields down here on regeneration because he still has Valorous Stance left over. So he can save his Death Dealer in the event that Oliver has a removal spell.
The shields aren't as down as one may think. Courser is in Oliver's hand, as is Arbor Colossus. Here's a Siege Rhino. Tomajko will have to pay 1 to cast it. So he'll go down to 4, up to 7. Now Boswell gets to weigh his options on what he wants to do because he does have a copy of Hunt the Hunter in hand.
So he has the opportunity next turn if he wants to pump the Death Dealer, hunt, and attack. Though I don't think he can generate a lethal attack.
It doesn't look that way.
If he rips a land that allows him to pump the Death Dealer, then he has a kill.
That was a forest.
I think a forest does it.
I do too.
Because he gets to pump, hunt the hunter, and pump, and then pump again.
There is Hunt the Hunter. Target green creature you control gets +2/+2 until end turn. It fights target creature and opponent controls. So that untapped land ends up working out just perfectly for Boswell. As you mentioned, pump the Death Dealer, then you Hunt the Hunter. Becomes a 6/6, you pump again. That'll be 8. That's more than 7.
It's possible that Oliver in that game overestimated the strength of his hand relative to Boswell's because he took care of the Warden, I think, for the logic that I explained before. He's trying to beat Boswell's good hands. Boswell's good hands are tapping out a lot, so he'd rather be taking 2 from the Death Dealer than 3 from the Warden. The way things played out, though, Boswell was able to beat Oliver by just sinking all of his mana into the Death Dealer, essentially for a couple turns there. So it's possible that Oliver kind of overestimated the quality of his hand as it pertained to Boswell's, and Oliver ended up dying with several spells in his hand, had the opportunity to get rid of the Death Dealer several turns before, elected not to, and then died with a lot left over in his hand.
Again, that's what I think makes playing against this Abzan aggro deck so tough is because the threats, again, are good early and they're good late. So, they have mana sinks in their threats. You can certainly see a game where Oliver just loses to Warden of the First Tree just going to the top rope, right?
Well, not even going to the top rope, just Boswell's tapping out every single turn doing things, and the fact that you're taking 3 a turn from the Warden versus the 2 from the Death Dealer, that's what ends up killing you.
Yep.
But the way things shook out, the Death Dealer was awesome for Boswell. Oliver couldn't really kill it, and he died to a flurry of pumps there on the last turn. So you had to go back to that decision and get a really good look at Oliver's hand. I understood the logic at the time, but he can't be happy with how things played out.
Yeah, no, it's got to be a little frustrating. Though he will get to be on the play here for game number 3, and he's going to go back to the drawing board. You see the sideboards available to both players. Boswell not really changing very much. Tomajko looks like he's changing a lot. I'm not sure how much will change for him on the player of the draw in this situation, but he's clearly not happy with his configuration right now.
Well, he had Arbor Colossus in his hand, and that's a card I was skeptical of him bringing in to begin with because it's a lot of mana. It's a green creature against a deck that's bringing in Hunt the Hunter, and Boswell's removal spells all tag it. Hero's Downfall, Ultimate Price, and the Valorous stances. So I don't know if that's a card that Oliver's changing around right now. I was surprised to see it in his hand there in game 2. He actually couldn't even tap out for it on that last turn. He played Siege Rhino instead to give himself a better chance to survive because if Andrew had any sort of answer to the Arbor Colossus, Oliver would just die.
These players are getting ready here for game number 3. Most of our players are already through to the semifinals. We got to get the result of this one done. But if you guys want to go back and rewatch the match, you can do that on our YouTube channel. We've got a lot of other stuff on there too.
Yeah, you can become a subscriber right now at youtube.com/StarCityGamesVideo. And it's not just the archives of this tournament or all the other ones, so that's all up there. You get to see old versus videos, premium archives, unboxing. There's a lot of content on there. So you want to go dig around, see what's up, go to youtube.com/StarCityGamesVideo and become a subscriber so you can get updates when new stuff goes up there.
Keep in mind, some of the content that we publish on YouTube is only on our YouTube page. For example, the unboxings that we do and some of the fun stuff on there, you're not going to find that on the website. You'll find it only on our YouTube page. So become a subscriber so you can be notified for cool stuff like that, as we have Brian Braun-Duin, Brad Nelson, Chris Van Meter, Todd Anderson, Evan Irwin doing all sorts of fun stuff at the home base in Roanoke, and we put it on YouTube.
I'm sure an Evan Irwin unboxing is a fun thing to watch.
You're not wrong. There's a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
Which I know would surprise you, but actually wouldn't surprise you at all.
Foil common in the pack, that's sweet.
Boom.
A rare land, that's sweet.
Indeed.
Every pack is pretty sweet.
Think about when he opens up old packs, which is something we do too.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, then he goes really animal. Cracking a Hall the Bandit Lord. Hello.
I mean, you get to, going back and opening up the old boxes, one of the real big changes in R&D philosophy you can tell is just the average rare is a lot more attractive than it used to be. Not necessarily more powerful, but the days of, one with nothing and Mudhole appearing at rare, a bunch of 5-mana 3/3s with bad powers. Honestly, Block is chock full of this stuff. That doesn't happen anymore. Go open an old box and the hit rate's not good.
Yeah, go crack a Kamigawa box and see how much fun you have.
Ooh. Prophecy.
It's depressing.
Prophecy's really rough. Odyssey Block's really rough.
And Kamigawa is one of my favorite sets to ever play.
I am sure it would be ruined for me if I went back and played now. You can't relive your childhood.
No, you can't. You really can't.
Part of my sentimentality, I think, towards Kamigawa Block was I had some good tournament finishes.
As did I.
Pro Tour 9th place finish and a Grand Prix top 8 in that limited format, But I'm sure if I went back and played it now, I would not enjoy it.
I wouldn't feel the same excitement about opening a Gao bound by Honor now as I would then, since my first pick has been decided for me. Or a Uyo, which is actually one of my favorite cards.
Uyo is sweet.
I liked Uyo. That's the first card. That was the first rare I opened in a PTQ top 8 that I won. It took me to victory.
I had a good working relationship with He Who Hungers.
Yes.
Did some real good work with that.
The insult game. The king of the insult game is calling someone a He Who Hungers. Just for the record, if you ever want to play that game.
I didn't know that.
It's true. That's true. It's true.
Good to know.
That's right.
Or potentially bad to know because I'm gonna do that a lot.
Here's a ward in the first tree.
And Boswell was just another smooth hand. He's got an untapped land and a Death Dealer. Then some comes into play tap lands and ways to fill out his mana, and a Siege Rhino. Just how you draw it up.
Nothing wrong with the hands that we see Boswell open up with most of the times.
Even his 5-card hand was really good.
Yeah.
He was able to cast some stuff. He had a top end. He could interact early. Wasn't good enough to beat Whip Veribos, but
it leads me to believe he spent a lot of time working the mana base for this deck. Here's the commune with the gods.
This has got to be an exact science, because if you mess up building this mana base, you lose a ton of games.
Siege Rhino, Arbor Colossus, Farika, God of Affliction, a Temple of Silence, and a land of waste of the cards that Tomajko has turned over. Decisions.
Farika is slow, but definitely powerful against a lot of what Boswell does. Siege Rhino is the most obvious choice. I can't imagine it's Arbor Colossus.
Given the information that we have right now, I think Arbor Colossus would be the third option.
Yeah. Arbor Colossus is, again, not even, if I was in Oliver's seat, not a card I would even bring in. Boswell's just got so many good answers to it.
He will take Farika, which, as you mentioned, can be a very good card in this matchup.
Yep, it's slow, and it is vulnerable to a couple things like Death Dealer doesn't match up very well against, and a couple other things, but it is very good, especially if Oliver's following up with a lot of removal spells.
Boswell going to take 1 to play the Death Dealer. In comes the Warden.
If he can take care of Boswell's troublesome creatures, then Farika can be very powerful, locking up the rest of the ground.
Tomajko going to go down to 18. And Boswell in the lead right now, both in life totals and on the board. Oliver with some real catching up to do. Murderous Cut looks pretty good, though. And he's casting this for 2 mana and 3 delve. My question is, does he have land number 3? Yes, he does in Sandstep Citadel. Life is good. Also a force in hand, so mana doesn't look to be an issue. It's possible we'll draw a card. A Johnny, Mentor of Heroes. The pump. The beats. Oliver down to 15. Passing of the turn.
Boswell just tapping out every turn like it's nothing.
Using all of his mana. I love it. Here's a forest. Oliver actually has a pretty nice turn lined up here, too, of Farika plus Murderous Cut if necessary. It would remove the fuel for Farika.
Yeah, but I think that Oliver wants to leave those creatures in the graveyard as much as possible. Because he had the option on that commune to just take a Siege Rhino and be done with it. So if he's taking Farika, it's because it's a big part of his game plan here. And I think that essentially means that he can't be delving very liberally. He wants to keep his graveyard intact as much as possible.
Murderous Cut for 4 mana and 1 delve will take care of the ward. Update for you guys here. Robert Vaughn does defeat Kyle Shane 2-1. So the Obzon control deck with a lot of Megamorph and Den Protector and Deathless Raptor is through. I'm going to try to take down Peter Wynn playing Mono Red in the semis.
So very interesting draw for Boswell this turn in Thoughtseize. His land comes into play tapped, so if he Thoughtseizes, that's his whole turn. He has no 2 mana play to make this turn. His hand's Bermaz, Siege Rhino, Ajani, and so forth. I don't think he can afford to take a turn off here. I think he's just got to cast Bermaz. The nightmare scenario here is that Oliver has an untapped 5th land and can make a snake, but at that point you're at least still making a token. You have a little bit left over. And you have an opportunity to follow up with Siege Rhino. But taking an entire turn off here, I think, is just too hard.
For Boswell, fingers crossed. Here's Bermaz. There's Sandstep Citadel. Pass that turn.
Now, if Boswell had access to an untapped 4th land, I would prefer to Thoughtseize and Bermaz than Siege Rhino, because Thoughtseizing is pretty attractive that turn. A chance to get that Farika out of the hand before any damage occurs. But I just don't think it's worth Boswell's entire turn.
Farika looming very heavy over this game. It has the ability to turn, just to take over.
Although, if Oliver's without an untapped 5th land, it becomes a lot harder to use.
Well, there's another removal spell. Utter End. Full retail, as you like to say.
And that's a perfect draw there.
Yeah, but Bermaz there is really big.
Replacement Bermaz gets an opportunity to Thoughtseize.
You see the hand here for Rika, Whip of Erebos. Murderous Cut, and I believe a Hornet Queen here for Oliver. Big draw there from Boswell to Bermaz.
Without an untapped land here, I think it's possible that Boswell says take the Murderous Cut and just try to race you. There's not a lot going on in that graveyard with the Whip of Erebos, and Oliver has to make the choice between Whip of Erebos or Farika if he wants to go down that path. Hornet Queen, we're pretty far away from having to think about that. So I think if I'm Boswell, I take Murderous Cut, and if Oliver fails to draw a 5th land that comes into play on tap next turn, he's in a lot of trouble.
So here's the question. Are you putting the entire game on your opponent drawing an untapped land?
No, because Boswell still has Ajani and Siege Rhino left in his hand. It's not like the game's over if Oliver is able to get Farika into play. There's only 2 creatures total in the graveyard.
Well, looks like Boswell's going to go with Farika. Going to leave Oliver with Murderous Cut, Whip of Erebos, and Hornet Queen. Here's Bermaz. Pass that turn.
And I think if Andrew is selecting the Farika, what he's saying is, with Ajani in hand, Siege Rhino in hand, and Hunt the Hunter, I can win a long game.
Well, we're going to find out, aren't we? Here's Temple. Take a look at that top card, Will Oliver. The 5th land would not have entered the battlefield untapped. Looks like Tomajko is happy with the top card.
Part of the concern I have with taking the Farika, though, is I don't necessarily want to be playing a long game against the Hornet Queen and Whip.
Oh, the Whip, yeah.
You're leaving a pretty solid end game in Oliver's hand. Now, he has to draw pretty well to get there because he has to hit his land drops and find things to do to blunt your pressure. But it's possible that he can get there.
There's another Murderous Cut. Pass the turn back over to Boswell. He'll untap and draw. It's a 5th land. Now the question becomes, are you playing a Johnny or are you playing Rhino? Do you want to get the creature established first or do you want to get the Planeswalker established first?
I would play Siege Rhino this turn. I think Boswell needs to start attacking given the cards he left in Oliver's hand. He needs to get a move on here.
Here's the Rhino. Trigger. Drain, gain, pass it. Let's see what Oliver left on top of that deck. Land of War Waste. That's land number 6. Here's whip number 1. You said that boss has got to get a move on. Well, Johnny's going to let him do just that.
Yeah, he can go to the top rope right now. Just start pumping that Siege Rhino a bunch.
Boswell wants to take a look at the graveyard, see what can be whipped back. Siege Rhino is an option. Arbor Colossus 2.
Siege Rhino is powerful, but all that is a swing of life. It may give Oliver another turn.
Another turn might be all that he needs.
Possibly.
Temple is step 1. Take a look at the top card. Looks like it's going to stay on top. Well, we know what Johnny's coming.
And I think this is Johnny, I believe, has to pump the Siege Rhino because I don't think Andrew can win a card advantage game at this point.
Yep.
Even if he finds creatures off the Ajani, Whip of Erebos plus Hornet Queen is going to dwarf that.
No attack.
Looking to protect Ajani from the Siege Rhino that Oliver can get back.
This is interesting because the Siege Rhino wouldn't kill Ajani, Arbor Colossus would.
Sure. Same deal, though.
Yes.
The Siege Rhino is large enough to block anything that Oliver can get back to threaten the Ajani.
Now this is a very telling no attack by Boswell. Because obviously the longer this game goes, kind of the uglier it gets because your opponent has a Hornet Queen in hand. Here's Thoughtseize. Boswell's card is Hunt the Hunter, so that's going to go away. Oliver's going to go down to 10. He's obviously going to whip something back because he's got nothing else to do with his mana. So he'll get Siege Rhino back. We're going to have this swing in life that you talked about. There's a trigger. Here's the attack. Boswell's going to block, so Oliver's going to gain 7 life total on the exchange. Now, I really want to know what Boswell's defending here. That's my big question.
Yeah, he left on top with the Scryland,
yes.
So it's something big.
To make no attack there and say, I am okay playing another turn is... we're going to find out right now as he draws a card.
Against the threat of Hornet Queen also.
Yes. Now, Boswell could maybe be saying, I'm banking on the fact that you won't draw a 7th untapped land. Maybe your 7th mana will be a land that enters the battlefield tapped because you have so many of those.
It is likely, though I'm sure that Boswell is in a pretty good spot, and I don't believe he would have just... There we go.
And offensive makes some sense.
Yeah, that helps explain it.
Here's an attack for 7. And offensive has been made into a 7/7 as well. So if Arbor Colossus is thinking about coming over, not going to get any work done. Didn't get a great look at the draw for Oliver. I do not believe it's the 7th untapped land, however.
Was a downfall. And downfall is not bad, but it is his whole turn.
Yep, he gets to choose one.
And
He gets either whip or downfall.
And if he gets back Arbor Colossus and gains 6, I think he's still looking at lethal on the way back.
He'd go up to 16. He's got 7. There's 4, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, so that wouldn't get it done either. So I believe that Oliver just has to pass the turn back, and he will.
He can't. He basically has to be able to downfall whatever Andrew pumps with the Ajani. So he just has to pass, allow Boswell to move into combat, and then kill whatever the largest thing is. Or if Andrew makes a move with the Ajani pumping something else, downfall whatever that target is.
So what's interesting here is does Boswell pump pre-combat?
I think Boswell has to assume that Oliver drew a removal spell. Because if Oliver drew nothing, at the minimum, he would have gotten back the Arbor Colossus.
I'm looking for Greg Gentile and Rachel Gillen. Greg Gentile.
If it was a creature, he would have cast it. If it was a land, he would have played it.
To the stage, please.
If it was nothing, he probably would have gotten back the Arbor Colossus or something to try to gain some life. So,
And this is the kind of situation where you can outthink yourself as a player. You got to go through that mental checkbox now of what your opponent can have.
Standings after round 7. And
You didn't whip anything back. Probably means you have a removal spell. I know you have Hornet Queen in your hands, and I have to try to figure out what that removal spell is.
And our honor to the pairing explorers. Please make way for the judges who are delivering.
Both are going to come in, trigger.
Please review
There's
your
Hero's Downfall, take care of the Rhino.
And then find your way to your seats so we can begin.
Now the nice thing here for Boswell is he can tick up a Johnny, and if he spikes the Siege Rhino, it's all over.
he can also, by taking up the Ajani, he also pulls the Ajani outside of Arbor Colossus range.
Very true.
So he gets to keep a lethal attacker on the way back.
We are going up. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Awkward.
Another legendary creature.
Oof. Not great. Not something to replace.
Well, Oliver is looking. Arbor Colossus is no help, but if he draws on tap land number 7, there's no Trampler in play. This Hornet Queen can still take this game over.
He's going to sweat it out.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, learn from Gerard, maybe. It's a Satyr Wayfinder.
That's not bad either. That's a chump blocker.
Yeah. Actually, not bad at all. Satyr Wayfinder can be cast, and you can whip in the same turn. That's two effects in one turn.
The problem is that you're facing lethal on the way back if Boswell has a removal spell.
Yep.
But Oliver does get to play on. Untap land number 7 would be ideal, but this is not a bad consolation prize, assuming he hits a land.
Which he did.
Ugh.
Last one. Sandstep Citadel. Those creatures get exiled, of course, because Anafenza is in play. Land's going to enter the battlefield. Here's your activation. Whip will get back probably Arbor Colossus. Yep. Can't kill Anafenza, though.
Legacy players, please make your way to your seats so we can begin our final round.
Time to attack. Oliver's just trying to decide where he wants to go with the attack, because you can make an argument that he's just supposed to go after Boswell's life total, take 6 out of it, because he's not going to kill a Johnny right now, but he'll knock 6 counters off of a Johnny. He'll also gain 6 life, go up to 9. Let's see what the Bos draws.
A removal spell gets it done.
Windswept Heath is not. Combat. There's the attack. Predictable block. A Johnny Elevator goes up. Take a look at a couple of cards. Last time all he found was Anafenza. This time all he finds is Anafenza. Wow. Windswept Heath and passing the turn over to back to Oliver. Oliver will take a draw step. I don't think the card he draws matters, though. I think the card he has in his hand is the one that matters.
He drew a glare, which may be good next turn.
Yeah.
But
this turn,
this is the prize.
it's this one. It's Hornet Queen. It's 4 insect tokens.
Remember, no Bioblight anywhere in Boswell's list.
Legacy players, please make your way to your seats. The round will be starting.
Boswell going to sacrifice his Windswept Heath, get a land out of his deck. Tough thing there, too, is Thoughtseize is actually a really good draw for Boswell that last turn, because he has Anafenza in play. So if he takes the Hornet Queen, it's exiled.
Yep.
So he definitely had some shots at some good non-creature cards, and some shots at some creature cards that are good.
Yeah. Rakshasa Death Dealer would be pretty solid in the spot. There's still some good draws.
Yep.
And any removal spell last turn would have just been lethal, because
Yeah.
Johnny pumps the Anafenza up to 10 power, and that's a kill. Now Boswell's definitely behind.
All right, legacy players, welcome to round 8. Good luck.
Oliver's played a very nice game to get to this point. Boswell draws a Plains. And now it's time for this to go up. Take a look. It's Tassiger. See how much work that can do.
Well, Boswell's got a lot of mana to work with and a lot of control over his graveyard.
Not a bad spot to be in. Well, there's Tassiger.
The problem here is at the end of the day, Boswell only has 2 creatures in play.
Yep.
And he's facing down a bunch of Hornets and Whip of Erebos. So Oliver is going to be able to start getting in some chip shots here with some of these Hornets. Maybe kill the Ajani, maybe just ignore Ajani. And Boswell needs to basically get so many creatures into play to overwhelm this, and it's asking a lot.
Andrew going to leave Death Dealer and Windswept Heath. Makes you wonder if Death Dealer is better than Siege Rhino in this situation.
Well, that appears to be what Boswell's saying.
Fleece main line is 1. Temple of Silence is 2. We can't forget that on Oliver's side, he does have Glare of Heresy in hand.
On top of that, if Boswell's saying Death Dealer is better than Siege Rhino, then I think you just have to give him Fleece Main Lion.
Yeah.
Because Fleece Main Lion is definitely worse than a Siege Rhino here. And now Boswell's got to figure out, would he rather activate Tassiger again or cast the Fleece Main Lion?
That is the question.
I don't think Fleece Main Lion does a ton here.
I think Boss has already used that this turn. Yeah, to help him find Tasker. So. So it'll be Fleece Main.
Okay.
Pass the turn back. Oliver will draw. I believe it was a copy of Siege Rhino.
It's great here. I mean, the faster that Oliver can start getting on the offensive here, the better. He's in a good spot, but he also does not want this game to go on for a bunch of turns.
I agree. Interesting question here for Oliver is how does he want to go about attacking, which he's going to try to figure out now, of course. Does he want to go after a Johnny or not?
So there is an exception to, I was talking earlier, Boswell can't really, he's just playing through Whip of Erebos. He can't get it off the table. He does have 2 copies of Dramoka's Command.
Okay.
So that is, as long as Oliver doesn't find a Courser or Crewfix or something, that will also work. But there's only 2 copies.
Here's Glare of Heresy. Gonna go after the Fleeceman line. That's gonna resolve. Hornet Queen and one of the insects will go after a Johnny. A lone insect will go after Boswell. Boswell gonna go down to 11. Siege Rhino gonna bring him down to 8. And life is pretty good here for Oliver.
2 blockers back on D.
Whip of Erebos in play, gaining all that life. It's 17-8 now. Dramoka's Command the draw. Maybe 1 turn too late.
I mean, he gets an okay turn of being able to fight something large and get the whip off the table. But, again, he needs to find some way to get through these Hornets.
Yep. Thoughtseize and Offenza.
We know which one he gets. There's an Offenza in play. 2 more in the hand.
Yep.
Probably can give him the 4th copy here.
I might pass him the 4th one. Oliver gonna give him Thoughtseize instead since he has no cards in his hand.
Sure.
Jamoka's command time, perhaps. This will take care of that. The tough thing here for Boswell is I think he just has to start attacking any of these insects, which stinks.
Well, at the minimum, the Anafenza can attack because he's got a replacement one to deploy.
Yeah. Here are some attackers. Trigger. There's a block. Oliver doesn't have much interest in blocking the large Anafenza because it kind of just shuts down some of Boswell's hand.
And with Oliver at 17, he can actually take this hit and another hit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's risky because of Siege Rhino, but he's got some cushion.
Draw step, core serve, crew fix. Not a bad place to start. Top card, Windswept Teeth. That'll enter the battlefield. Trigger up to 11. Caves of Coilos, staring back at Oliver. He'll sacrifice. Stay at 11. Get a forest. We'll see what the top card is.
Yeah, Oliver wants to have the information right now about what he's drawing because that's going to dictate how he attacks.
Top card, Whip. Good to know. Just wants to figure out the best way to attack now. I imagine wants to make it a 2-turn clock as best as he can.
Yeah.
And then if possible, draw Siege Rhino, so be it. Take a draw step, will Andrew.
Make sure there's no weird mixture of, you know, Siege Rhino plus a removal spell plus a Blah that can kill him. He knows a lot about Andrew's hand, but better safe than sorry.
There's your attack. The insect will block there. The follow-up is Anafenza. Pass the turn back. Oliver will untap. He'll draw that Whip of Erebos. Next card's a Windswept Teeth. That'll enter the battlefield. Up to 12 he goes. Temple and Malady, the top card now. He'll play Whip. He may activate Whip, and he will. Here's Farika. You do a devotion check. I think we're all clear there.
Yep.
Coming on in, and that is going to do it. Oliver Tomajko is going to win this match here over Andrew Boswell. 2-1. Avzon Reanimator knocks off the #1 seed in the tournament.
A very well played match there by Oliver, and that Thoughtseize from Andrew there felt to me like the whole game. I would love to go back and watch and see what the different decision trees are there. That's a really complicated Thoughtseize. Andrew there, I guess feeling like Farika would have been too hard to beat with most of his offense on the ground. But Erebos was able to do quite a bit of work there, as did the Murderous Cut. All those cards are going to be good there in some capacity.
Yeah.
So hard to know for sure. But that was one of the tougher Thoughtseizes I've seen in the last couple of weeks and months doing this.
Yeah, certainly a difficult decision. It's hard to say if Boswell got it right or wrong. We just know how the game played out given what he chose.
I know that I know what my instinct was. I defer to Andrew's expertise. I would love to get to play that game out in the alternate world, one where you take Farika, one where you take Whip of Erebos, one where you take Murderous Cut and see how things go. But that was a really tough call.
I'll tell you what. He might be young at 14. He can play some Magic.
Yeah, that was a very well navigated. I mean.